The morning I was supposed to become someone's husband, the house smelled like rain and coffee. A soft drizzle tapped against the windows, a nervous, uneven rhythm that felt too much like my own heartbeat. Sunlight struggled through the clouds, casting pale, silver lines across the hardwood floor of my childhood home, the same floor I'd learned to walk on, to fight on, to forgive on. Everything felt familiar, safe, and yet, my chest felt like it was holding a secret it didn't want to keep anymore. My bride, Anna, was upstairs getting ready. I could hear her laughter drifting down the hallway, light and effortless, carried on the voices of her friends. Every sound was a reminder of what this day was supposed to be. What I was supposed to be. I sat alone at the kitchen table, turning my phone over and over in my hands, pretending I was just killing time. The coffee had gone cold. I hadn't taken a single sip. Then there was her brother, Ethan. He wasn't in the house yet. That was the first strange thing. Ethan was never late to anything. He was the kind of person who showed up early, leaned in doorways, and filled silence with quiet, thoughtful comments that made you feel like he was really listening. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself it didn't matter. But I kept checking the front door anyway. The memory of last night clung to me like the smell of rain on pavement. The two of us standing on the back porch, the glow of the porch light painting his face in soft gold. The way his voice had dropped when he asked me, almost joking, "You ready for this?" I'd laughed. Too quickly, too loudly. Now, in the stillness of the morning, that question echoed in my head, heavier than it had any right to be. A floorboard creaked upstairs. I looked up, half expecting to see Ethan at the top of the stairs, even though I knew he wasn't there. My reflection stared back at me from the darkened window, tie loosened, hair slightly out of place, eyes that didn't look like they belonged to a man about to say, "I do." I tried to focus on Anna, on the life we'd planned. The house, the future, the comfortable, predictable happiness everyone said we were perfect for. But every thought drifted back to her brother. To the way he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking. To the strange, unspoken tension that had been growing between us since the day we first met. The front door finally opened. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of wet asphalt and something sharper, electric. I didn't turn around right away. I didn't have to. I felt him there, like a shift in gravity. "Morning," Ethan said softly. My throat tightened. I stood up, forcing a smile I wasn't sure reached my eyes, and faced him. His hair was damp from the rain, his jacket darkened at the shoulders. He looked at me the way he always did, like he was about to say something important and didn't know how. For a moment, neither of us spoke. And in that silence, I wondered, was this just nerves? Or was this the beginning of something I wouldn't be able to walk away from, even if I tried? By the time the rain slowed to a whisper against the windows, the house had filled with people and noise and the soft chaos of a wedding morning. Voices overlapped in the hallway, footsteps moved in nervous patterns, and somewhere upstairs, someone dropped a hairpin and laughed too loudly about it. The world kept spinning forward, determined to arrive at a ceremony that I wasn't sure my heart was ready for. Ethan lingered near the doorway of the kitchen, his presence quiet but undeniable. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, watching me with that same unreadable expression I'd grown too familiar with over the past year. Not intrusive, not distant, just there. "Everyone's asking for you," he said. "Figures," I replied, glancing at my reflection in the microwave door. My tie still wasn't straight. Nothing about me felt straight. He almost smiled at that, then looked away, like he'd caught himself thinking something he didn't want to finish. We stepped outside together, escaping the heat and the noise. The backyard was still damp, the grass flattened in dark patches where the rain had fallen hardest. The air smelled clean, like something had been washed away. I breathed it in slowly, trying to convince myself that this was just nerves. That this twisting feeling in my chest was what every groom felt on his wedding day. Ethan sat on the old wooden bench near the fence, the one Anna and I had painted together last summer. I stayed standing, unsure of the space between us, unsure of what would happen if I closed it. "You don't look okay," he said. "I'm fine." He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "You always say that when you're not." I laughed, but it came out thin. "You've known me what, a year? Suddenly you're an expert." I've been paying attention, he replied. That word, attention, landed heavier than it should have. I busied myself with a loose thread on my jacket, my hands needing something to do. It's a big day, anyone would be a little off. Yeah, he said, a little. Silence stretched between us, filled only by the distant hum of traffic and the faint music drifting from inside the house. The kind of song meant to make people cry in a good way. Ethan stood up. He was close now, too close. I could see the rain still clinging to the ends of his hair, tiny droplets catching the light. My heart beat faster, traitorous and loud. Do you ever feel like you're standing on the edge of something? He asked. Like one wrong step and everything changes. I swallowed. All the time. His eyes held mine, searching, like he was waiting for me to say more. I didn't. I couldn't. A voice called my name from inside the house, breaking the moment like glass shattering. We both jumped, the tension snapping back into place. Guess that's your cue, Ethan said, stepping away. I nodded, relief and disappointment tangling in my chest. The ceremony was set in the garden behind the house. White chairs lined the lawn, a simple arch decorated with flowers that smelled too sweet in the warm air. Guests filled the space with soft murmurs and polite smiles. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. Anna appeared at the end of the path, radiant in a way that made my chest ache. She looked at me like I was her entire future, and for a moment, guilt washed over me so hard I almost couldn't breathe. Ethan stood off to the side, hands clasped in front of him, eyes on the ground. I kept glancing at him, my focus slipping no matter how hard I tried to pull it back. The words of the officiant blurred together. Promises. Forever. Commitment. My mouth formed the right answers automatically, muscle memory and expectation guiding me through. Applause broke out. Anna kissed me, her lips warm and familiar. Everyone cheered, and still, something inside me felt unfinished. The reception was a blur of clinking glasses, laughter, and people pulling me into conversations I barely heard. I smiled. I nodded. I played my part, but every time I scanned the room, I found Ethan across it, watching me like he was seeing something no one else could. When the sun dipped low and the sky turned a soft orange, I finally escaped to the side of the house, needing air. I pressed my hands against the cool brick, grounding myself. Footsteps approached. I had a feeling I'd find you here, Ethan said. I didn't turn around. You stalking me now? Maybe, he replied lightly. Then, softer, you disappeared. I needed a minute. He leaned beside me, our shoulders almost touching. The space between us felt charged, like a live wire. You did it, he said. You're married. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, that's all you've got. What do you want me to say? He hesitated. I could feel it, even without looking at him. I don't know. I guess I thought you'd look happier. The words stung because they were true. I finally faced him. His expression was open, unguarded in a way that made my chest tighten. I am happy, I said. It sounded like a lie, even to me. He searched my face. You don't have to pretend with me. The world narrowed down to the two of us, the distant noise of the party fading into a dull hum. I could see the faint scar near his eyebrow, the one he'd gotten as a kid. I'd asked him about it once, and he'd told me the story with a smile that lingered longer than the words. Ethan, I said, warning and plea mixed together. Tell me I'm wrong, he said quietly. Tell me there isn't something else going on here. My heart hammered. I looked away, out at the darkening sky. This isn't fair. To who? He asked. I didn't answer. He took a step closer. I could feel his breath, warm against my cheek. I don't know when it started, he admitted. Maybe the first night we talked until 2 in the morning. Or maybe when I realized I cared more about what you thought of me than I ever should. I closed my eyes. Say something, he whispered. I opened them and met his gaze. I can't. That was the truth. And it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing one step forward would change everything. We stayed there, suspended in that moment, the unspoken hanging between us like a storm cloud. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. Anna's name lit up the screen. I looked at it, then back at Ethan, caught between two worlds, two versions of myself. Go, he said softly. She's waiting. I nodded, even though my feet didn't move right away. As I turned back toward the house, The laughter and music rushing to meet me, one question echoed in my mind, louder than the rest. How do you walk away from something that hasn't even fully begun? The hours after the reception bled together in a haze of champagne, congratulations, and small talk that felt more like performance than celebration. I smiled, nodded, and shook hands with people whose faces blurred in my memory. The weight of the dress on Anna's arm, the warmth of her hand in mine, it all felt like I was wearing someone else's life, pretending it belonged to me. Ethan was always there, in the peripheral. Not looming, not conspicuous, just present. A shadow that I couldn't ignore, a constant reminder of something I hadn't allowed myself to name. I caught him watching me from across the room more than once, and each time, my chest tightened, a small knot of guilt forming where it shouldn't. I told myself it was impossible, absurd, yet impossible doesn't stop the heart from noticing. Later, when the party had thinned, I slipped away to the balcony overlooking the garden. The air was cool, scented faintly with wet grass and the faint trace of jasmine from the floral arrangements. The sky had deepened into a bruised purple, and the string lights above cast a soft golden glow. It should have felt peaceful. It didn't. Can I join you? Ethan's voice came from the doorway. Calm, measured, but carrying a weight I could feel in my bones. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He moved closer, and for a moment, the air seemed to hum between us, alive with the tension we'd never allowed ourselves to name. You're quiet tonight, he said, leaning against the railing beside me. Usually, you talk too much when you're nervous. I laughed softly, but it was hollow. Today's different. He tilted his head, studying me. Different how? I don't know. I wanted to tell him everything, to confess the storm in my chest, but the words died before they reached my lips. Instead, I focused on the sky, the way the last traces of sunset bled into the horizon, thinking that maybe if I looked hard enough, I could lose myself in it. Do you ever think about what we're doing? He asked quietly. All of this. I swallowed hard. You mean, the wedding? No, he said. This. Us. What's happening right now, even if it's just this moment. My heart stuttered. Ethan, don't. His hand brushed mine, almost imperceptibly, but enough that the air shifted. My chest tightened, and I felt a strange, hot electricity run up my arm. I'm not asking for promises, he said. I just want honesty. I wanted honesty. I wanted to tell him that I had never felt this alive in my entire life, that the idea of spending forever in a life built on expectation made me dizzy with fear. But I couldn't, because the word betrayal hovered like smoke around my throat. I can't, I whispered. Why? Because I'm married, I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. You are, he said softly, almost a whisper. But does it feel real? The question lingered longer than it should have. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The truth was too sharp, too dangerous. Every memory of our conversations, our silences, our stolen looks, pressed against me like fire. I had tried to ignore it, to bury it under routine, under obligation, but it clawed its way back with every heartbeat. We stood there, silent, watching the night. Then, almost without realizing it, he leaned closer. My breath hitched. His hand brushed against mine again, lingering this time. His eyes searched mine, intense, demanding an answer I wasn't ready to give. You want this, don't you? He asked. I shook my head, but the movement felt like a lie. My body betrayed me, leaning toward him in a way my mind refused to acknowledge. I know you do, he said. You can't fight it forever. I shouldn't, I whispered, my hands trembling. I can't. His voice softened. Why not? Because I promised her. The word felt hollow. Promised. A contract. A chain. But did you mean it? He asked. His gaze was relentless, cutting through the layers of denial I'd built around myself. I couldn't answer. My throat tightened, my chest ached. The truth was screaming, raw and urgent, and yet I was paralyzed. I had built my life on expectation, on duty, on the lie that desire could be postponed. But desire doesn't wait. He moved closer, and suddenly there was no space between us. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing against the tension in my jaw. His eyes searched mine, and I felt myself falling into them, into something forbidden, something inevitable. I don't want to hurt her, I whispered, my voice cracking. You're already hurting, he said. You don't have to do it alone. I wanted to reach for him, to close the gap that had stretched between us for so long, but I froze, caught between duty and desire. My fingers hovered near his chest, and for a heartbeat, I imagined letting go of everything I'd built, letting myself fall into the chaos we both knew was waiting. The world narrowed. The distant laughter from the reception faded. The cool night air pressed against my skin. And then, impossibly, he kissed me. It was soft, testing, electric. My body reacted before my mind could protest. My hands found his shoulders, then his back, as though I was anchoring myself to reality even while betraying it. The taste of rain, of him, of everything I had forbidden myself, filled me. A sudden noise, a chair scraping sharply against the floor, made us both jump apart. My heart hammered as I realized the impossibility of what we had just done. The night air felt heavier, charged with the weight of unspoken consequences. Ethan's forehead rested against mine, breath mingling. We can't, I whispered. We can't stop feeling this, he replied. I pulled back slightly, guilt slicing through me like a knife. The world was waiting. Anna was inside, smiling, expecting me. And yet here I was, trembling, alive, caught between a life I had chosen and a desire I couldn't deny. Go back, I said. Please, go back before someone. I won't, he interrupted softly, but with a determination that left me breathless. Not this time. And in that moment, as the night deepened and the rain began again, light and soft against the balcony, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. The choice was no longer theoretical. The line had been crossed. And now, the consequences, whatever they would be, were inevitable. The hours that followed the balcony were a blur, yet every detail etched itself into my memory with painful clarity. I returned to the party, but the world had changed. The laughter, the music, the clinking of glasses, all of it sounded hollow now, like I was listening through a wall. Anna's hand in mine felt heavy, oppressive, and I could barely meet her eyes without feeling the weight of betrayal pressing against my ribs. I tried to distract myself, to force my thoughts back to the wedding, to the vows, to the life I had chosen, but Ethan lingered like a shadow at the edge of my consciousness. Every time I caught a glimpse of him across the room, leaning casually against a doorframe, talking softly to a guest, I felt that same jolt, that same impossible pull. It was as if the world had shifted, tilting me off balance, and I could no longer find the center. At one point, I slipped into the quiet of the kitchen to escape the noise. The faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant chatter of the last stragglers felt almost comforting. And then I heard it, the scrape of a chair, light and deliberate, behind me. I froze. Mind if I join you? Ethan's voice was soft, almost teasing, but it carried an edge I could feel in my chest. I turned slowly. He leaned against the counter, his eyes scanning mine, unblinking, expectant. You shouldn't be here, I said, trying to sound casual. My voice cracked, betraying the tension I'd been holding at bay all night. I could say the same to you, he replied, stepping closer, his hand brushing against mine in a gesture that should have been innocent but wasn't. My pulse spiked. I wanted to pull away, to remind myself of boundaries, of promises, of the vows I had just made, but my body betrayed me, leaning closer without my permission. The air between us seemed to thicken, charged with something electric and dangerous. We stood like that for what felt like an eternity, the world narrowing to the two of us, until I realized I could feel his breath on my cheek, warm and steady. I wanted to speak, to demand distance, but words failed me. I could only stare at him, my hands trembling, heart hammering against my chest like a drum I couldn't silence. He tilted his head, eyes searching mine. You're thinking about it, he said. I'm not, I whispered, though the tremor in my voice betrayed the lie. Yes, you are, he said softly. You can't pretend with me. I swallowed hard, trying to steady myself. I can't, I admitted, the single word heavy with everything I wasn't saying. His fingers brushed my jawline, gentle, tentative, but every nerve ending in my body screamed at me. Then don't, he whispered. Time seemed to stretch, each second slow and deliberate, as if the universe had held its breath along with me. I could feel the warmth of his hand lingering, could see the faint glint of rain still clinging to his hair, the subtle rise and fall of his chest. My own heartbeat felt impossibly loud in my ears. I wanted to step back. I wanted to do the right thing. But the gravity of what we were doing, what we were even thinking of doing, pulled me closer instead. A part of me screamed, telling me this was wrong, taboo, unimaginable. Another part, the part one had tried to ignore for months, recognized the truth. This was inevitable, and I wanted it. I shouldn't, I murmured, my hands frozen at my sides. No one's forcing you, he said. But if you want to, just for a moment, it's yours to choose. Quote. His words were soft, almost a caress, but they hit me like a thunderclap. The tension coiled tighter in my chest. I could feel the pull of desire, guilt, fear, and longing twisting together into something unbearable. I blinked, overwhelmed by the impossible choice stretching before me. One step forward, and everything, my marriage, my promises, the life I had meticulously planned, would shatter. One step back, and I would live with the memory of what I almost allowed. Ethan's gaze held mine, steady, patient, unyielding. His hand still lingered near my face, and I could feel the warmth radiating from him. The moment was suspended, fragile, like glass ready to crack. Then the sound of laughter drifted from the main room, breaking the spell. I flinched, heart hammering, suddenly aware of the consequences waiting outside this fragile bubble. He didn't move, he just watched me, eyes dark with unspoken words. I can't, I whispered again, though the lie was thinner this time, closer to the truth I didn't dare say aloud. His lips curved slightly, almost imperceptibly. You will, he said softly. And just like that, the moment hung unresolved, suspended between desire and duty, between choice and inevitability. The air was thick, charged, and I realized that the night, and my life, would never be the same. Every instinct screamed to retreat, to run back into the safety of what I had promised. Yet the pull of Ethan, of the possibility of what we could be, was magnetic, irresistible, and I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The balcony felt smaller now, the night darker, the tension sharper. And though I stepped back toward the house, toward the laughter and the expectations waiting for me, a part of me stayed there with him, suspended in that impossible, forbidden moment. The choice remained unmade, the consequences unspoken, and I knew that the next step, whatever it would be, would change everything. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, sharp and unforgiving, as if the world wanted to illuminate every mistake I had made. Anna was humming in the kitchen, moving like nothing had changed. Her dress from the night before hung loosely over a chair, still fragrant with perfume and flowers, a silent reminder of the vows I had spoken and already begun to betray. I watched her for a moment, trying to will my heart back into obedience. The smell of coffee filled the room, but I couldn't drink it. My hands shook too much. The memory of Ethan, his closeness, the warmth of his hand, the impossible kiss, pressed against me, suffocating, unrelenting. Morning, Anna said brightly, pouring a cup and setting it in front of me. Her eyes searched mine, expecting ease, gratitude, love. I forced a smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. Morning, I muttered, voice tight. The silence that followed was thick, loaded with the unspoken. I wanted to speak, to confess, to unburden myself, but the words would destroy everything in one sweep. So I swallowed them instead. Ethan didn't appear that morning, but I could feel him in every shadow, in every turn of the head, in every reflective surface that reminded me of the night before. I kept imagining him watching from somewhere beyond the wall, and the thought made my stomach twist. Throughout breakfast, I found myself flinching at small sounds, the scrape of a chair, a laugh too loud, a door shutting. Every ordinary noise felt like a warning, a reminder that the boundary I had crossed was not easily repaired. Later, Anna suggested we take a walk through the garden, and I agreed, silently grateful for the distraction. But as we wandered among the flower beds, I found my thoughts drifting to Ethan. I imagined his expression when he watched me, the intensity in his eyes, the way he seemed to understand everything I was trying to hide, even the parts one didn't yet understand myself. Anna noticed my distance. "Are you all right?" she asked. Her tone was gentle but tinged with concern, an intuition I could not deceive. I nodded, but she frowned, a crease forming between her brows. I can't shake the feeling that something's wrong," she said softly. I forced another smile. "I'm fine. Really. But the lie felt heavier than truth ever had. I could see her trying to believe me, the way someone clings to hope even when reality is crumbling around them. By mid-afternoon, the house had quieted again. Guests had left, leaving behind a strange mixture of debris and echoes of laughter. I found myself alone in the study, staring at the rain-streaked window, and felt the familiar pull of Ethan's memory. My hands rested on the desk, but I wasn't writing, wasn't reading. I was thinking about what I had done, and what I wanted to do. And then I heard the faintest sound behind me, soft and deliberate. My heart lurched. I didn't turn. I already knew who it was. "You can't stay away," his voice whispered. I turned slowly. There he was, framed by the doorway, eyes steady, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips. "And yet here you are," I murmured, voice low, conflicted. "I've been thinking," he said, stepping closer. "About last night. About us." I could feel the tension coil tight in my chest, the familiar ache of desire mixed with guilt. We can't." "No?" he asked softly, leaning against the doorframe. His gaze held mine, steady, unwavering, full of unspoken promises and uncharted danger. I can't," I said, but my voice faltered. He smiled, faint, almost teasing, but there was fire in his eyes. "You will," he said. And just like that, the air seemed to shift. The impossible tension between desire and duty crackled, thick and undeniable. I wanted to resist, to retreat into the life I had committed to, but a small, reckless part of me, the part that had never listened to reason, wanted to step forward. Anna's laughter floated from the kitchen, distant and innocent. Ethan's presence filled the room, heavy and impossible. And in that suspended, fragile moment, I realized that nothing would ever be simple again. One step forward could destroy everything. One step back could leave me haunted forever. The choice was mine, but which choice could I live with? The morning sunlight spilled unevenly across the bedroom, slipping through half-closed blinds and casting thin stripes across the floor. I lay in the sheets, wide awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the city outside. Today was supposed to be the day my life changed, the day I promised myself to someone I loved, or thought I did. But my chest felt tight, my stomach unsettled, and my mind refused to follow the script I'd written for myself. Anna was downstairs, her voice carrying softly through the hall as she joked with the bridesmaids. Her laughter was bright, easy, the kind that filled a room and made you forget the world outside. I should have been smiling, celebrating, eager to step into the day we'd planned. But instead, I felt a tremor of unease that I couldn't shake. Ethan wasn't here yet, and that absence, so subtle, so ordinary, felt like a warning. Normally, he'd be early, hovering in the kitchen, commenting on small things no one else noticed. I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining it. Yet I kept checking the doorway, half expecting him to appear, leaning casually against the frame with that quiet intensity that always made my heart skip. The air smelled faintly of rain and fresh coffee, mingling with the floral arrangements my mother had insisted on setting up last night. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. The calm before a storm has a way of sitting heavy in your chest, and mine was growing harder to ignore. I stood and walked to the window, tracing the condensation on the glass with my finger. The street outside glimmered with wet asphalt, reflections of early morning lights bending and dancing in the puddles. A car drove by slowly, its tires hissing on the slick road, and for a moment, I imagined Ethan stepping out of it, closing the door, and looking at me with that look he always gave when he thought I wasn't paying attention. I shook my head, trying to force my thoughts back to Anna, to the life I had promised to build. But the thought of her brother lingered, a shadow tugging at the corners of my mind. There was something in his presence that unsettled me in ways I couldn't name, something that made my pulse quicken even when I told myself it was impossible. A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned abruptly, heart thudding, half expecting to see him. But it was only the house settling, the sound of furniture shifting. Still, my chest tightened, and a shiver ran down my spine. I pressed my hands to the window, staring out at the empty street. Was it anticipation, regret, or something I hadn't yet understood about myself? Then I heard the faintest knock at the front door. My pulse spiked. I wasn't expecting anyone, and yet, In the pit of my stomach, I knew exactly who it was. The day had begun, and I already knew nothing would ever be the same.